This is Business Rockstars.
Inspire, inform, and connecting a community of entrepreneurs. This is Business Rockstars. I'm Mark Lack, CEO of Shorten the Gap, here with Laurent, Ruben, founder of the French Accelerator and investor in VC. And why don't you just share for our audience, what is an accelerator and what is it that you do?
An accelerator is not a new concept. It's been in place for the last 20 years, and pioneers like Y Combinator, 500 startups, Techstars are today billion-dollar fund and accelerators. But around that that pioneers, now thousands and tens of thousands of accelerators have been paving the way the last 20 years, and maybe at some point too many accelerators are too much. And the traditional model for those accelerators is taking shares of very early stage startups, and in exchange of 50 to 60K on average. And when you look at the methodology behind is, okay, it's a 12-week program where you get mentors that are going to come on site and making sure to give you the right advice for your business planning, your financial planning, your product, and also network. The story is that because there are too many accelerators, the model today is not very profitable to most of the accelerators, except of the big five that are into that business. Not that many accelerators are really making money, because often the investment are very risky. Those startups are very early stage, and just a few of them are making success. And we worked for the last 2 years at analyzing that market, and we envisioned that there would be a new model for those accelerators, where today, for example, at French Accelerator, we decided not to focus on very early stage startups, but to focus more on Series A startups. And the model with those startups is totally different than the early stage. So when you're early stage and we give you 50, 60K on average, and we take between 5 and 15% of your company, you're happy because you're going to get a lot of mentoring in the back end. But when you're a Series A and your valuation is in millions or tens of millions, you're not going to dilute yourself that easily for 50K. So we envision a very new process, and I think that people like Microsoft Ventures are also exactly in the same trend right now, where today we are on the edge of seeing new type of accelerators that are more focused by verticals or by industry or by specialty. For us, for example, the niche that we found that would be very interesting is that in France, for example, there are a lot of investments for very early stage startups, especially from the government. When you're a very large company, it's very easy to find financing. But when you're like a Series A and you're on the edge of going into a mass scale business, you really need financing. And the valuation multiple in France are not that great, and the financing are pretty difficult to find. And that's where these guys, they get a lot of pressure from the investor team to go in the US, because usually the market is bigger. The valuation multiples are much bigger as well. So a lot of French entrepreneurs try themselves to go in the US. They go to New York, they go to San Francisco, and with that kind of American dream. From a European point of view, coming into the US is just a huge dream. And when you land in San Francisco, into the big Silicon Valley, or you land into New York with that kind of Manhattan atmosphere, it's really dreaming. But when you're like a European, you come into the US, you come a lot with cultural gaps, language barriers. You move often with your own family. You have a competition that you didn't suspected. The competition and the pricing is very different. So usually you spend a lot of time trying to establish yourself in the US, and you don't focus on the key metrics, such as building value. And we help them to go through that.
Awesome. Inspire, inform, and connecting a community of entrepreneurs. This is Business Rockstars. I'm Mark Lack, CEO of Shorten the Gap, here with Laurent, Ruben, founder of the French Accelerator and investor in VC. And one of the things I heard you keep saying over and over again was Series A. Could you explain that for people listening who don't know what a Series A is?
Sure. You have a few maturity stage into a company, and what we have is the early stage level, which is you have an idea and you need to launch your product. And usually SeriesA is a company that went through that beta of their product, and the product is launched and they're generating the first set of revenues, and that's what we call SeriesA.
Awesome. So it sounds like when you were telling me a little bit about what you guys do, it sounds like essentially you guys are coaching and consulting for people to help them essentially raise money. So I'm assuming people obviously want what you're providing, but how many people do you have to look at or interview before you ultimately pick the right person?
Very simple. Right now we receive around 5 to 6 application forms a day. It's around 30 to 40 entrepreneurs that we interview per week. And at the end we take between 1 and 2 per month.
Awesome. So when you are looking for that company though, and you have interviewed people, what are you ultimately looking for that makes them stand out and attractive to you?
There are three different factors. First of all, making sure that they have already a sustainable business in Europe. Second of all, we really carefully look at the team and the scalability of this team. And the last thing, which is very important, is also the scalability of their product. Usually a product that is working well in Europe might not work perfectly in the US.
Are there any sectors ultimately that you guys like the most or gravitate towards?
We define ourselves as very generalist, and we could work with any type of business, but the experience of all our consultants and partners that we all are, we are very focused into the tech.
And how much money do you guys typically put into an organization on average?
That goes from 5,000 to a few 100,000. So we take usually minority stakes, but we provide them full-time consultants for between 6 months to 12 months that are really working with the CEOs of these companies.
So I know a lot of different investors have their own style. Are you guys ultimately more patient investors, or do you guys pull the trigger fast, so to speak?
We're patient investors.
Patient investors, awesome. Yeah. So what ultimately makes you guys different investors or a different organization than some of the other providers out there that do what you provide?
We focus on operational expertise, and that's what we have. Before building French Accelerator, I've been an entrepreneur and a CEO for the last 20 years, and I really focus on operational expertise. Whatever it's sales or marketing or management in general, it's very important that we get the first success rapidly with these companies, because if they don't get the right traction rapidly, they really phase out afterwards.
Okay, and so what ultimately led you to wanting to shift over into the US than just staying in France?
I had the chance to come when I was younger in the US, and it was a pure dream. And I had to finish my school and to go to an MBA in the UK. I spent almost 10 years in France and in Switzerland and Italy working. But at first shot, I took my chance and I came here.
That's awesome. And I was just really curious, because I always love to know differentiating factors, and I asked you one earlier, but what really differentiates you from another VC or investor?
We're looking meticulously at French startup, and that's kind of unique. And we think that these guys, they have a lot of potential. In France, we do many things wrong, but we have two things that we are very good at. First of all, we have very creative entrepreneurs. They really fight very hard to succeed into a small country with many social issues. And also, we have fantastic education system. Our engineers and developers, I mean, if you go at Google here or Facebook, they're hungry of developers coming from France, because they are very passionate, they're very rock solid, and they're very cheap.
So are entrepreneurs the same all over the world?
Then you can see differences, but when you're CEO or an entrepreneur, it's a DNA. You have the risk, the taste for the risk, or calculated risk, so it depends where you put it at the balance. But it's kind of across the board.
Thanks to Laurent Ruben, founder of the French Accelerator. I'm Mark Lack, CEO of Shorten the Gap. Inspire, inform, and connecting a community of entrepreneurs. This is Business Rockstars.